to watch the actual featured draft. And let's go down to the action. For our featured drafter, we have Tim Meyers, who I believe was actually the champion of CubeCon last year, Ryan.
That is absolutely true. The reigning champ is here. Not defending the CubeCon champion title, but of course playing for the very high stakes that we outlined at the top of the podcast.
The charcuterie board, I believe.
Sorry, right, the cheese, not the stakes.
Oh, okay.
My mistake. I keep saying that. I need to get on the right
You're
course
Miss
here.
Cheese. Even. Ryan promised me that we would start out like pretty normal and then get more nonsense as the weekend goes on. I don't know if that's the case here. We'll have a look at the pack one pick one for Tim. And what stands out to you here, Ryan?
So first of all, I like the way that Tim fanned over the full pack. He's looking at everything, and he's pulling to the front the exact cards I would: Animate Dead and Psychic Frog. Animate Dead, just an all-time kind of reanimator kind of card. The reanimate targets in this cube are fairly modest. As far as an individual card, Psychic Frog really stands out on individual card power level. It's currently legal in Legacy. We'll see how long that lasts. Animate Dead makes a lot of sense, though. Just an all-time powerful historic card.
Right, and you don't get yourself into two colors that early on. And honestly, yeah, I really do have a weakness for what I privately call Trainwreck Reanimator, which is I'm going to take an Animate Dead or an Entomb early and then see where it goes. There is a Necromancy in that pack if Tim wants to stay on this Reanimate plan.
It makes a lot of sense to see Tim pull that to the front. You really don't want to fight people if you're in Reanimator, especially in a cube like this where you'll often be reanimating cards that cost 5 or 6 mana. You know, Triplicate Titan is kind of the marquee biggest thing to bring out of the graveyard. You know, there's no Gristlebrand's here. There's no Archon of Cruelty. So you do kind of want to solidify your spot in that lane. And kind of what I was talking about here as far as reanimate targets, you see Bonnie Paul coming to the front of that pack.
Okay.
You know, that's a 2023, 24 card, whatever, a lot of text, a lot of power level, but you don't think about Bonnie Paul as all-time great reanimator target.
No, I mean, it's fine, right? Like, it's going to give you value, it's going to dominate the board fine, but yeah, as you say, there's no Archon of Cruelty.
No. That card came in a standard legal set. Makes a lot of sense to have Baleful Strix near the front. There was a Blood Crypt in the first pack that Tim was looking at. You see Black Cleave Cliffs here. When you're in Reanimator, and again, you know, generally you're never going to be mono black Reanimator. You usually want a second, third color, and this cube is kind of a 3-color cube. So you are kind of eyeing that. I like the Necromancy here because you're staying in, all right, I'm going to be doing something out of the graveyard. It's going to be black. It's going to care about big creatures. And I have some time to figure out my second color.
Yeah, and you see Tim actually like highlighting the Badlands here, really thinking about what colors he would want to play with this black Reanimator strategy. Red-black definitely seems like something that's on his mind. A lot of white cards in this particular pack. Lingering Souls, one of my favorite cards, pulled up to the front there. And I actually love a card like Lingering Souls in this kind of strategy because sometimes it takes a little while to put your reanimation thing together, Ryan.
Yeah, it's a card that cares about the graveyard too. It has flashback. Sometimes you discard that for value. It comes up. You can get some synergies that way. It plays on the battlefield in a big way. I like bringing the Badlands to the front of the pack too because it's do or die on red as your second color.
Right.
We've already seen Blood Crypt. That's not coming back. Like there's just no shot, right? The Black Cleave Cliffs maybe, but if we pass this Badlands, we're probably not playing red-black.
Right, and that is like the land you want as well. Like.
Right. Yeah, it's better than Blood Crypt if you can believe that.
Wow, that's why we pay you the big bucks to be the expert in this booth, Ryan. Badlands better than Blood Crypt. You heard it here first, but Lingering Souls is going to be the pick for Tim. So maybe, yeah, just dropping the Rakdos Dream and moving in on some white cards. And we see some white cards here. Loran, Walking Ballista, Portable Hole, and not a lot in black other than this Ophiomancer that Tim has pulled up.
And for that reason, it makes a lot of sense to move Walking Ballista to the front of the pack, right? It's just a really strong card to cast. You're not going to bring it back with Necromancy. It comes back as a 0/0. But it's just a solid rate. Just kind of an all-timer in that category.
Right. You can't go too wrong with Walking Ballista.
Right. You will play it. How thrilled will you be? I don't know. Will you have any synergies? Not with the cards drafted so far, but it's good.
It is good, but Ophiomancer is pretty nice as well. Maybe thinking about some of these sacrifice aristocrats type synergies going on. You see Transmogrant Crown already in the pack there for Tim. And I'm sure there are plenty of other enablers for that strategy as well. So Ophiomancer seems like the top consideration right now.
And you see all the 3 cards being considered here. They're looking at kind of a token kind of thing, which is going to play with our Lingering Souls.
Right. Is that Siege Gang Commander as well? The old
Classic.
border version? Yeah, that is
Scourge.
a great card.
One of the better cards in Scourge.
Wow. That is well before my time.
That's the year I started playing.
Oh. I'm like a Magic, I don't know, millennial zoomer. I don't know what it's called, but I do love Siege Gang Commander.
Like Ophiomancer was the take, and that makes a lot of sense with Lingering Souls. We're kind of going to gum up the board. Maybe we're using Animate Dead as kind of a value reanimate kind of thing, which is fair. Literally, in the sense of Magic, it's a fair thing to do.
It is a fair thing.
If you take your time to
Okay,
reanimate.
but honestly, like,
It's not weak.
what's really the line? Everyone talks about fair and unfair, but no one really talks about at what point fair becomes unfair.
You're kind of pulling the curtain back on me. The value of saying that in the booth is that I could mean whatever the audience wants me
I
to
see.
mean.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Yeah. Don't worry. Don't worry, chat. I'll ask him to define tempo later on.
We don't have all night.
So we see a lot of blue cards in this pack. Really not a lot going on in the black side of the color wheel. Chilean, one of those signpost cards. Potentially an option, but Tim's going to take a land here. I think it was a blue-white land.
Meticulous Archive, the Surveil blue-white land. He's got to start getting mana fixing at some point.
Okay.
We know we're not playing mono black. We got some white cards we're interested in playing. And surveiling, sometimes you do just high roll and put your reanimator target into the graveyard with it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. The Surveil lands are great. What a great cycle.
Esper Lingering Souls, Esper Animate Dead, these things make sense.
That's true. And here is Jadar, which is a... Don't call her Ophiomancer at home, but...
And, Meticulous Archive, even if you're not really playing blue, or certainly if you're splashing blue, you can play it very easily.
Right.
We're still kind of a black-white deck that has a blue-white Surveil land.
Right. That makes sense. Or you could even splash the Lingering Souls. I mean,
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff going on. White cards, I think there's a recommission behind the jar, which is not necessarily the type of reanimate effect that Tim is looking for.
Right. Yeah, the Jadar is looking like we are valuing the sacrifice kind of things. We're trying to really make use of that crown. Draw some cards from our tokens dying.
Here's Stitcher Supply, a classic 1-drop for the Reanimator graveyard shenanigan strategy.
Citrus Supplier is a reasonable card in a kind of sacrifice shell. It fills up your graveyard. It can mill your Lingering Souls. You're kind of going off that way. Sometimes, again, you high roll and put something you want to animate dead into the graveyard. I dig it.
Okay, and Tim's also considering this green creature.
Lumra? Big bear?
Okay. Lumra, Bellow of the Woods. So yeah, this is one of the 6 drops that you were talking about as potentially a reanimated target. And does have visions and reach. It's one of these as big as the number of lands you have type thing going on. And does some graveyard stuff.
Yeah, and one with the Citrus Supplier, and that makes a lot of sense to me, especially when we're talking about reanimating 5-6 mana creatures. You really want to be able to cast them if you draw them, because they
Right.
only have the impact of a 5 or 6 mana card, naturally. And if you spend some time trying to fiddle and discard them, if it gets to be turn 7, you've wasted that time. You've
Right.
lost value instead of actually capitalizing on cheating in a creature.
So I think Tim, a little bit of a crossroads here. Staff the Storyteller, great for the token strategy. And that
Love
is
this
going to
pick.
be, that is going to be his pick. But there was some consideration for Phyrexian Flesh Gorger, maybe another reanimated target that you can also play just in a fair way.
Yeah,
if I
that's,
might be allowed to use the term.
It's very, very apt. That's a nice creature to cast for 3 or 7. I like the staff pick because it is really capitalizing on Jadar and these other token cards, and he's really pushing this lane. And this cube does reward synergies in a big way.
Was that Unearth, though?
Yeah, Unearth
pick?
brings
Yeah.
back the Ophiomancer, maybe the
Okay.
Jadar, I don't know. It's okay.
Yeah, and Bonnie Pool is back, so maybe took a little bit of a punt on Bonnie Pool coming round as like a random reanimation target. Is Pull the front. A lot of counter spells we've seen going around. Negate coming back through Field of the Dead. One of Ryan's favorite cards.
Yeah, I'm really known for decks that do stuff like that. Nevinyral's disc has sure fallen a long way from its glory days. Just pushed to the back of the pack. Someone's getting that late.
Well, will they be happy about that?
Will they remember?
Will they remember?
Bonnie Paul is now in the pool, so we could reanimate it. Could find a
I
way
would
to
love
actually
to see
splash
that.
casting it too.
I would love to see that happen. And look at all of these white cards coming back. Angel of Invention. That is a token strategy type card, right? Does a little fabricating, does a little pumping.
It's a lot of white cards, and they're all kind of appealing, right? Angel of Invention has an Enter the Battlefield ability, plus that Anthem. It's good to reanimate, it's good with tokens. Hero of Blade Hold is just a great card to cast. Just ends games quickly. Skrelv's Hive synergizes with multiple cards. I like the Angel. It kind of plays both roles. It's good for tokens, and it's decent to reanimate.
Yeah, and look at this. Transmogran's Crown coming back. So Tim really made a lot of bets, and they are all paying off.
Yeah, beating the lane pretty well. He was thinking about this Milliken before, may as well now. Don't know if that one makes the deck, but it's fine.
We'll see. Regrowth and Sidisi coming around late, so it looks like no one really in Golgari, or at least not in Golgari enough, Sultai enough to pick up Sidisi there.
Sidisi both being a self-mill card and a token maker is valuable with what's going on here, but it's only a 4-mana card, and Tim has no shot currently of casting that with these other cards.
No. It's just, I think the only bit of fixing he picked up, I think he did get that Meticulous Archive. And
Milliken coming to the front. All right.
Nice.
That one is making the deck.
Okay. And Don't Make a Sound, the new Quench from Duskmourn coming in as the last pick. So after pack 1, Ryan, what are your thoughts? What is Tim looking for going into pack 2?
So he still has those 2 really good reanimator cards, Animate Dead, Necromancy. They're very efficient, and they're notably also good at reanimating your opponent's things. I think he's kind of looking at playing a decently fair token game and then just value Animate Deading.
Okay.
That's how the packs have kind of fallen here. We'll see how that shakes out. I like this angle, though, where he's leaving himself open to both things, right? He's really been pushing this token synergy instead of taking suboptimal reanimator cards.
Right. Oh, here is Blood Artist, and, I am partial to a little bit of Aristocrats myself and love a good Blood Artist. Goes pretty well with the Crown and some of these other tokens stuff that Tim has picked up.
Blood Art is still one of the best to ever do it, too.
Right.
A lot of new versions of that card, and there's some give and take, but as far as caring about both players' things,
right,
Blood Artist is incredible.
Yeah, and it's just so sweet, the design, so well costed, the O1-ness. Just love this card. That sounds like a weird thing to say, but sometimes, you see a card and it has this effect and it has power and toughness and you think, come on, you're putting too much on it.
Right. We don't need to push it. It's already great.
Right. It's already great.
Nice synergy with Jadar there, too. You can keep churning those decay zombies.
Yeah. Very nice.
Not surprising to see Tim scoop that one up.
Okay, so things are kind of shaping up. We're seeing the direction there for Tim. I think there was actually a lot of other options in that pack.
No. Certainly once we already have this much context, it just wasn't a lot to consider there.
Well, the Saga, pretty powerful card in this particular pack, but Tim not really doing the artifacts thing. Having a read of Scavenger's Talent, and this is one of the new talent cards from Bloomborough.
Tremendous amount of text on that one. It's good with tokens and reanimating. It cares about creatures dying, gives you food when that happens. And also, you can sacrifice some stuff to bring a creature back from your graveyard. Kind of a weird ability in Chapter 3 because it doesn't target.
Right.
This is a really nice synergistic card between both things Tim has going on. I will say, he doesn't really have great mana, so I like the shadowy backstreet being at the front of the pack as well.
Yeah. So how important is it? Say Tim ends up actually just being Orzhov, right? How important is it to get your on-color duels in a deck like this?
It's still pretty important even if you're 2 colors. If you play like a traditional retail limited 9/8 mana base, you're kind of a coin flip to be off of a color. If you draw 2 lands and they're 2 swamps, you can't cast a lot of your spells. It's pretty rough.
Yeah, and there are a lot of pips in some of these cards. We see Swords to Plowshares and Adeline put up to the front, as well as Felidar Retreat. So very powerful white cards here for Tim.
The power level of this cube is modest enough that I really like Swords to Plowshares. It makes a lot of sense. He has this at the front of the pack here. Catch-all removal, good against creature decks that are low to the ground, good against big things, and this cube cares about the graveyard, so exiling really matters. Love that pick.
And I think he actually just doesn't have much interaction yet. This might be his first piece of removal, I think.
And you can't get much better than that.
Right. Yeah, nice one. For sure, as we see Tidehole Skull, a bit of hand disruption being considered here, as well as, is that Tundra, I believe?
Yep.
In the pack, Steel Seraph, and maybe even Chromatic Star, though I think that one may be a little bit less of a priority.
Right. I don't know that Tim is actually looking at casting any blue spells just yet. He has that Meticulous Archive, it'll make it easier to go into blue if he takes the Tundra. But there hasn't been that abundant of mana fixing, and when that's happening, you can't expect it to come later.
Right.
Sometimes it just means somebody else has just taken all the lands.
Right. And Tim also has Underworld Cookbook pulled up to the front, so now we're seeing maybe a little bit more of a lean towards the Reanimator side of the deck, getting a bit of discard outlet going for Tim.
Yeah, the discard outlet makes a lot of sense. He has 2 premium reanimate spells, right? So getting something to kind of synergize that way, especially in a pack where, again, the Tundra feels a little low value, especially because we're this far into pack 2 and he's not looking at casting a blue spell just yet.
Right. Well, I mean, Bonnie Pool is there.
Right, but then you need green lands. That's a lot. Bonnie Paul's asking a lot.
Bonnie Paul's asking a lot of questions.
You gotta read Bonnie Paul.
Okay, I see what the problem is. Lion Sash, well then, we were talking about pips in your primary colors, and that is a card that really does want you to have as many white sources as you can. Harvester of Misery, I love this card.
Talk about reanimation targets and discard outlets. This one does it all.
Right, puts itself in the graveyard.
And when we're talking about the modest mana curve in the cube, you're trying to reanimate 5-6 mana spells. That means the rest of the cube's mana curve is pretty low too. So a lot of stuff dies to getting -2/-2.
Yeah, I do wonder,
awkwardly,
what the other
a lot of
players are
Tim's stuff dies to getting -2/-2.
Okay. All right, but I think Tim doesn't mind as much.
He has a lot of agency in when that comes up, so that's totally fair.
Yeah. What are the other options here? You see Springleaf Drum, Sarah Paragon is a nice one if you have a low curve.
Yeah, caring about the graveyard and having some cheap token generators, the Sarah Paragon did make some sense.
Bit of Triumph. Maybe the second piece of removal here for Tim. Elspeth Smite in white as well.
It's really funny to me to see Elspeth Smite pushed up with Bitter Triumph, both because Bitter Triumph is so much better of a removal spell. It's also a discard outlet. So we valued that cookbook pretty highly. Bitter Triumph does so much. It's a great interactive card. It enables some of what our deck wants to do.
And do you think there's a bit of a tension here for Tim between the two sides of his deck as we see him consider the Intrepid Adversary as well?
Yeah, certainly. The Adversary is one of the bigger haymakers for if he wants to go in on tokens. But like you were saying when you drafted Source of Plowshares, he's pretty light on interaction. And I think that's what's going to put Bitter Triumph over here. Right, and here we have, I think that's the Grixis Signpost card? I believe that's actually an Izzet card, Brutaclad.
Oh, Brutaclad. Oh, I see. It's the old border version of Brutaclad, which
that everyone was clamoring for.
Have you played against this card?
I've read it.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. This is one of the commander decks that my fiance plays, and it is absolutely a beating. As we see the Luminous Broodmoth being picked up, and that does go with the sacrifice stuff. I mean, it's kind of a bit of a reanimation engine by itself.
Yeah, the Broodmoth makes all your creatures just way more threatening. You're not tokens anyway.
All right. So now as we go into the next pack, a lot of multicolored cards here. See Millstone pulled to the front.
Mindstone.
Oh, Mindstone.
I would love it if we saw a Millstone.
Look, I got Graveyard on the brain. Right? I got Graveyard on the Mindstone.
Drag the Canal. Yeah, you're more of a retail limited player than I am, so that's maybe a card that you'd be
Ryan,
into.
you keep saying the phrase retail limited, and I feel like there's a slight derogatory implication that you're putting into that, which
I
do
can
not
confirm that.
recommend.
I can confirm
Okay,
the
all right, okay, I see how it is. The battle lines are being drawn here. Scavenger's Talent made it back, but Servo Exhibition did as well.
Okay, Servo's Expedition definitely plays with the tokens. I feel like
Like
that
how I
talent coming
messed up
back was
the
a
name,
gift.
and then that made you mess up the name.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I'm working with you.
Yeah, that's synergy. As for Sentinel, the pickup.
Decent card.
Yeah?
I think
Pretty
it's
good?
quite good and constructed. It's like fine in Cube. You'll play it.
Tim will play it.
Yeah.
We actually don't know that. Just
We'll
disclaimer.
find out.
Tim might play it.
We're left to believe.
Oh, SRAM's expertise. I mean, the token cards really are flowing, right? That's the archetype that definitely looks 100% open
Yes.
for Tim.
That Steel Seraph is a nice pickup too, both in having that cheap mode, kind of like that Phyrexian Devourer we saw earlier, where casting it for 3 is just solid. Casting it for 6 is even better. And, that's one of those 6-mana creatures. You could animate dead that.
You certainly could. And Oblivion Ring in the last couple of picks. I mean, Tristani is actually a pretty decent...
Tristani's solid.
A pretty decent tokens card.
Maybe you can find a green land too, right?
Right.
He doesn't have that much in way of discard outlets, so maybe the animate dead stuff, like the fact that it's not castable, we're not quite there. The Oblivion Ring there is disciplined, but I know why he was thinking about it. That makes sense to me.
I think it would have been pretty sweet to see, yeah, I'm going to take Animate Dead, one of the most powerful reanimated spells of all time. I'm just going to reanimate Tristani.
Looking to reanimate it like a Guilds of Ravnica rare.
Actually, I think Tristani's a mythic, right?
It is mythic, you're right.
Yeah.
And Niv Mizzet Perun is a really powerful
That's a great
rare
card.
from that era as well. So I'm just wrong up and down.
Okay, all right. Someone clip that, please. All right, so Tim's deck. Let's talk about it. The curve seems pretty good. Maybe you could do with some more 2s.
Yeah, and he's picked up decent interaction. He's got that Swords, the Bitter Triumph, the Oblivion Ring. Got some good ways to slow the opponents down. And while he is kind of in 2 lanes, he's heavier on tokens than Reanimator. So his deck's kind of focused in that way. He might not even play these cards. Though again, the Animate Dead can just be a value card. And the white removal doesn't subsidize that, but Bitter Triumph does just put an opponent's thing in the graveyard. You can get busy with your Animate Dead that way.
All right, so pack 3 now for Tim Meyers, who was the champion of last year's CubeCon. Then we have Ryan, we're going to do this one together.
That would be Asmarana Martika Dyston Akuldakar.
Wow, got it in one.
Yep.
Got it in one.
Clip
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Tim's already got the cookbook.
Ooh.
Right?
That's a combo both ways. You either go tutor up the cookbook, or you discard a card to be able to cast your Asmarana Martika Dyston Akuldakar.
And Tim's thinking about it. But Carrion Feeder is also extremely tempting here.
Yeah. Sacrifice Outlet, he's got that token stuff. There's a lot of incidental things, like the Ophiamancer and the Jadar, that make a token every turn, so the feeder can get really out of hand with those.
Maybe Tim's thinking about, which one of these is more likely to wheel here.
It's kind of interesting, because when you have the cookbook, you really want the Asmarana Martika Dyston Akuldakar. But it's also probably the case that nobody else does either.
Right. So, he is going to take Asmora. Or Asmo, as her friends call her.
Scrubland is kind of nice.
Okay. All right. Not a lot else in the pack here.
We haven't seen a single fetch land in this draft.
That's true.
That's going to make just mana generally tough.
Yeah, there are definitely fetch lands in the cube, but Tim's... they're probably a pretty high priority pick.
Right.
There is a Fabled Passage. It's kind of a fetch land.
Yeah, I guess why I'm saying that is it makes it way more important to take the actual duels because you have the one scrub land, right?
Right.
You cannot Bloodstained Mire for it if you don't have Bloodstained Mire.
There is a Cityscape Leveler. Now, we were talking about these reanimating targets being kind of maybe mopey, this 5-6 mana thing, but Cityscape Leveler, that is a legitimate big boy.
Yes. And we've seen the way Tim drafted. He's got a lot of just cheap stuff, and it really seems that he is stressing playing this low to the ground, go wide, and then just value reanimate. And I think if you just toss the leveler in this deck, that's generally pretty coherent and a fair game. You're just kind of sabotaging yourself.
Yeah, that's why we call it Trainwreck Reanimator.
He's not drafting your preferred version.
No. I mean, he's being much too disciplined for that, but that's why he is playing at the table, and I am sat here with the one and only Ryan Obenturf.
We must defer to the wisdom of the champion.
Yes, and Tim has got Collective Brutality pulled up, a classic Reanimator kind of enabler. I was thinking about Monastery Mentor as well.
Yeah, pretty light on spells, so I like that pass there. And the Brutality is just like a fine removal spell, too.
Right. Oh, hello.
Whoa, that's a gift.
That is so sweet.
We can read the other cards. I would be amazed if Yawgmoth doesn't make the deck here.
Oh, for Mayhem Devil.
If he could cast it, there's like a conversation.
He could reanimate it.
Yeah, Necromancy for Mayhem Devil.
Creature is castable.
That's a payoff.
Yeah.
I paid 3 mana, and I got this 3 mana card.
Yeah, but can your opponent beat that 3 mana card?
Well, if they can't beat the devil, they probably can't beat the Yawgmoth.
That's probably. It's going to be Yawgmoth Ran position.
Unless they're at 1. You know, Yawgmoth takes a turn to attack.
And there's quite a few options here, though. The Marionette Apprentice, the latest Blood Artist.
Yeah, talking about a card that possibly improves on Blood Artist, this is like the one.
Right.
It only cares about your things, but it brings a friend. You get that servo token if you want it.
And caring about artifacts is very real.
Yeah.
You know, in the treasure meta.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. This is legitimately a reanimated target.
The Avenger of Zendikar, yeah. It would be more appealing. I'm going to go back to that fetch land thing. You're playing 1 land a turn and drawing 1 card a turn.
He's got lands in his deck.
He does have lands in his deck.
Well, it's, it's going to make him make plants. And tokens are part of the synergy.
And he has picked up the Collective Brutality since then. A little bit more reliable to get it in the graveyard.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm agitating for Tim's deck to get worse, by the way. Like, that's just not very nice.
You can only be you. We would never ask you to be anybody else.
Okay, well, I appreciate that. Glimmer Lens pulled to the front, and this one is pretty sweet. Tim's got a lot of great synergistic cards, the Token Makers, the Sacrifice, the Reanimate, but sometimes these decks do run out of gas, and having some value pretty
Glimmer
nice
Lens
here.
Jadar. That's a combo. It's not a combo. That's a synergistic interaction.
Where's the line between combo and synergistic interaction, Ryan?
It's higher than that.
Okay.
We'll leave it there for now.
All right. There's Crypt Breaker. But see, the problem is my mind is now in Changeling Cube mode. I'm like, Crypt Breaker, this card seems busted.
Tap 3 creatures, draw a card?
Yeah. Hello?
Wow.
Yeah. But no, this one, they do have to be zombies.
It's just a nice discard outlet. If we're taking Avenger, the Crypt Breaker makes a lot of sense to me.
I mean, that goes with the Jadar.
Yeah, tap those decayed zombies.
Yeah. Ashnod's Harvester, a nice bit of graveyard interaction. And a graveyard heavy cube. Gravecrawler, though.
Ooh, Gravecrawler and Windbrisk Kites. This is kind of like a little push-pull. The Windbrisk Kites is nice for your cheaty things. And the Gravecrawler is quite good with that Crypt Breaker. And there's some other zombie stuff. Jadar, like you said, makes that decayed zombie. This kind of subsidizes the early game, the beatdown plan.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Is that the Marionette?
That's the Marionette Master.
Oh.
We want the Apprentice.
I
don't know how much we want the Master.
Yeah. This is the 5 mana OG version.
What's this card at the front of the pack?
It's Asmora Nomadica Daicina Kodaka.
Oh, yeah, that is what it is.
I need to get in the rhythm of it. Like, once I've said it, like, there's a point after Asmora where I'm like, what's next? But then once I get the next syllable, then the rest just kind of flows, Because I'm a pro. That's what pro casters do. Learn the names of the cards. Glass Casket.
Glasket, if you will.
I will. I was going to fight, but actually, that is also what I would call it. So
you shouldn't.
I'm not going to. I'm going to pick the battles.
A decent interactive spell. Again, the white removal in Tim's deck, exiling creatures is a little bit unfortunate. But hitting the small ones, you wouldn't animate those anyway. Nice way to stem the bleeding against aggressively slanted opponents.
Yeah, I like Glass Casket a lot. Or Glasket, if you will. No, Glasket. Sorry, not Glasket. Come on. What am I?
A professional.
You are learning quickly. We like that. Love to see Tim cutting a gilded goose from someone else.
I hate Gilded Goose. Yeah, I guess I'm like, this would be...
Just every so often you just come out with like a pet peeve that is just so... Gilded goose is just such a...
All of my pet
anyone
peeves are
hate-
innocuous. That's why they're pet peeves.
Right. This is just someone's pet.
Pet
that you have a
card.
peeve.
It's my pet peeve that they have a pet/pet card. It's really appropriate, actually.
Sure.
Mostly
That's
junk
a
at
word.
the back of Pack 3 for
That's
Tim
a word
here.
you could use to describe your opinions. We're kind of getting around to the end of this draft now for Tim. And do you think it's gone the way that he wanted it to at the beginning?
So, I chatted with Tim briefly when he was in the feature match area you're drafting. And I asked him, have you drafted this cube before? He said no. And I asked, how did you prepare for this event? And he said, I glanced at the list.
Okay.
So I think that this draft hit his expectations perfectly.
Well, wow. The disrespect for Tameshi Reality Architect, maybe in one of my top 5 draft cards of all time. Unreal.
I do like that card.
That's a great card. Pelagic, Archaeologist, whatever.
It's
Tameshi?
it's like
A+.
the Archaeologist is a nice self-milled thing. I think that Tim is just an Orzhov deck, though.
Yeah.